It's going to be perhaps a more friendly face than our other keynote speakers that we've been having. So Karen, more than just a keynote speaker, she's actually someone that have embarked on, I'm not going to say lifelong, I think they'll be exaggerating, right, Karen? But let's just put a lifelong relationship with the icons of real estate. So Karen here, she's the founder of the Raising Vibrations podcast community. She was working on something very similar to what we do here at the Icons of Real Estate. And she has her own podcast, which is called Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast, which has almost 500,000 downloads, not 500 downloads, 500,000 downloads. All right. She knows what he's talking about. And from a background in the fitness industry, she's turning herself into a podcast mogul. All right. So now she's joining forces with Icons of Real Estate. This is of a presentation to everyone on what Karen is capable of, because she will be present here, not just in helping us grow, in helping us improve, and help your podcasts improve and grow as well. So leaving the mic on to you, Karen, to do as you please with our attention.
Well, thank you for that, Tomas. It's been an absolute pleasure to join the Icons of Real Estate. Yeah, I've been podcasting for, this didn't happen overnight, guys. Okay. I've been podcasting now for nearly 4 years, and I've interviewed over 220 guests. And if you're doing the math, yeah, that was more than one a week, right? For 7 months, I increased to 3 shows a week until I almost hit burnout. But, at the beginning, some of my guests were not getting a return on their investment in time, because it wasn't costing them anything, for appearing on the show. And we really had to look at why that was. And it was really down to how they were showing up. So if, for full transparency, I decided to get myself a coach. And I realized I had this sort of aha moment where you know what? It's not about you. It's about the listener. And when you can find a way to draw the listeners into your story, and not just any story, not your whole resume, but the right story that you can share with them, you start to shift the belief in the listener. It's all about the listener. So then I started to coach my guests through this strategy that I'm going to share with you. And what we found was that they were getting a measurable result from being on the show. And of course, I saw my downloads increase. And yes, I'm just so close to that 500,000. I'm about 4,000 off, I think. So I want to hit that target. And now we have an easy formula for our guests, because I want them to show up and shine, because it's not just about me. So let me share my screen. Share. Come on. Okay, so can you all see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up, somebody, so I can see you all on the other side.
Thumbs up.
Yeah. Awesome. So look, guys, imagine stepping into every podcast or guest appearance with absolute clarity. You don't just share your story, but you guide the audience through a journey that positions you as a solution to their biggest problems. So what if by the end of every guest appearance, your ideal client not only felt inspired, but ready to take action with you now? And that really is the power of having a clear and proven framework, really. So today I'm going to talk you through the 5-step process or 5-step strategy that will transform any guest appearance into a strategic opportunity for growth, trust, and more sales. So this isn't just about sharing your expertise. It's about guiding the listeners from curiosity to commitment, and so that they leave actually excited to take the next step with you. So today you're going to learn how to not just use your personal story, but actually deliver it in a way that creates a powerful connection. It will also position yourself as the guide that has a unique results-driven process. You get to address both the internal and external objections before they even arise, and you get to deliver actionable value that resonates far beyond just appearing on the actual podcast. So you'll get to lead your audience to take a clear and meaningful next step with you, because that's what you want. You want to get an ROI from every guest appearance and bring the listeners into your world. So when you follow this 5-step approach, you'll not only stand out in every guest appearance that you go on, you'll transform that into an effective way to build the trust, showcase your expertise, and turn listeners into long-term clients. That's the goal, right? So whether you're growing your podcast and or your business, right? They both work together. And if you get on podcasts that are bigger than you, this can actually be a game changer, especially if they're in your niche. So the goal, the ultimate goal, is to be able to sell without selling. It's a softly approach. So a lot of people think they're just there to give information, but I'm sure you've heard this before. The info tells, but stories actually sell. So the first P, it stands for the pre-frame. Okay. And what I mean by this is where the host is going to introduce you, and it needs to be specific. This is how you're introduced. So first of all, can you guys put in the chat what it is you do and who you help? What, just to get an idea. Some of you, I didn't want to, I've stopped sharing because I want to see the chat. What is it you do? Are you realtors? Are you investors? Are you a recruiting agent? What is it you do and who is it you help? Because, or how, at the moment, if you've appeared on guests on podcasts, how are you being introduced? You're a realtor, recruiting agents. Okay. Anybody else? Is it just Lisa? I help residential real estate agents sell more houses. Okay, that's clearer. I help expats buying luxury in Valencia. Realtor, Kendra. Okay, the thing is, this is what you do, right? This is what you do. How you do this part, the pre-frame, is really you want to be able to, this is going to set the stage, right? This shouldn't be just about your bio. It's your chance to humanize yourself and connect with the audience straight away. So own it. Don't just leave the introduction to the host. You can send them a pre-crafted intro that tells the listener exactly who you help and the results you provide. So some of you have put realtor. Well, I'm sure you deal with first-time buyers, maybe empty nesters. So with each guest appearance, just pick one specific thing. So focus on the pain points. So instead of just saying, I'm a realtor, so I could say, not that I am, but I could say, I'm Karen Roberts and I'm a realtor in New York. Flip it, because it's not about you. It's about the listener. So you could say, well, I help empty nesters downsize stress-free. And this hits the heart of a specific issue that your audience may be facing. So maybe look at the audience of the podcast that you're going on and, showcase your specific intro for the specific audience. Because if you're dealing with that specific pain point that the audience is facing, you're going to make them feel, she gets me. She's speaking directly to me. And that's what you want to get. So if you highlight the problem that you solve, rather than listing your credentials, that I've experienced this when they, for the introduction, they want to, I've been doing this 20 years and I've done this, that, and the other. That's about the person. I'm sorry to say that the listeners don't care about you. They don't care about your achievements. The listeners care about what's in it for them. So if you highlight the problem that you solve, Rather than listing your credentials, it's about relating to your audience on a more human level. And so the listeners want to know how you can help them, not how great you are. So the real magic here is in solving their problem. So for some of you, it might be, if it's not empty nesters, it might be, I help first-time home buyers navigate the confusing market without overwhelm. So positioning yourself like that, it positions you as a solution right away, making you more relatable and not just credible. I hope that makes sense. Can you put in so for those of you, I'm going to stop the share. I can't do these two things at once. Can you now rephrase that? Can anybody put in there? So I help make home ownership a realty and help agents expand their business. Yeah, but who? Anybody? So I help maybe X people get Y result. What is the transformation that you offer? Real estate investors and business owners. Yeah, but what is it you help them do? What is the big promise that if people come to you, what are you offering them? So think of it like that, because that's what you want to give the host so that they introduce you in that way. So if the listener is that audience, their ears are going to prick up. And that's what you want. You want to draw the listeners in. I help expats relocate and enjoy their new luxury lifestyle in sunny Spain. Perfect. You're future pacing the end result. Brilliant. I think you're getting that. So let me go back. Can't do the two things at once. So the second P will stand for the promise. So the promise that the host has just basically offered the listeners as to what you can help them achieve. And this is where your story comes in. And it needs to be in alignment with what you do now, not your whole backstory. The start point needs to be the moment that you decided to do what you do now. Some of you are realtors. Some of you have moved on to be a broker. Some of you have gone into investing. So when you start this, it's about the why behind what you currently do. So think about a pivotal moment when your career or the mission that you're currently on actually clicked. Maybe it was a frustrating experience when you bought your first home. Maybe that's what triggered you to become a realtor, or a realization that your approach to real estate could be done better. So share the raw details. Where were you in that moment? And you want to set the scene because people are listening. So you want to bring them in to experience your story. So where were you in that moment? What could you see? What was the weather like outside? What day of the week was it? What could you feel? Where did you feel it? Because all these details is what makes your story real, and it may resonate with the listeners. So you want to add emotional depth because it's not about your accolades. There might be a time to bring those accolades in when it's a relevant time in the story. So your story is going to showcase from vulnerability to success. It's not going to start with where you are right now, but where you were. So was there a time when you questioned your career? Were you burned out? So when you share that particular moment, it makes you relatable. And then you can describe your aha moment. What led you to do the work that you're currently doing? That's the important thing. It's in alignment, because this emotional pivot will build the trust with your listeners. And then after you share your story, then you can connect the dots back to how it benefits your audience, how it benefits the listener. So if your epiphany was about simplifying the home buying process, explain how that experience drives your current passion for helping others. So you want to showcase that you're not just selling homes. You're not just selling real estate. You're guiding them through an experience that you deeply understand. So, for example, I remember sitting at my kitchen table. It was raining outside and I was feeling completely overwhelmed, staring at the endless paperwork when I bought my first home, thinking there had to be an easier way. And that frustration led me to develop a service that removes all that stress for first-time buyers. Can you see that's far more interesting than saying, 10 years ago, I got my real estate license and I decided that I was going to help first-time home buyers. You want to bring the audience, bring the listeners into your story, because you want the listener to realize, they've been where I am right now and they found a solution. So you've introduced yourself in a way that connects and it relates to the listener, making the audience trust you instantly, and they'll understand the value that you are offering. And that sets you up as someone who not just knows their stuff, but actually understands the people that you serve. So can you see, before I move on to the next P, let me stop the share. Can you see how delivering your story in that way to bring people in? It's like watching a film, right? But they're not watching. Well, they might be watching the video, but they're listening. So you've got to find a way to bring the people in to actually experience your story so that they get to know, like, and trust you. Yeah? Get a thumbs up. Are you following? Any questions? We'll have questions at the end. Okay, let's go back. The third P, it stands for the process. So this is your opportunity to separate yourself from the thousands of other realtors that are out there. This is what's going to set you apart from your competitors. So this is where you get the opportunity to share your unique process for getting that result for your client that was shared in the pre-frame. So take the example of if you're helping empty nesters. So you might say, I have an easy 3-step process for helping empty nesters downsize without the stress and overwhelm. First of all, I discover their true needs. I start by assessing my client's current and future lifestyle needs, because it's not just about finding a house. It's about helping people find a home that aligns with where they want their life to go. So I sit down with them and I ask questions that go deeper than the typical, what are you looking for in a house? We talk about their lifestyle changes, their future plans, and even emotional goals. So this is relating to empty nesters. So whatever it is you're doing, you've got to come up with your 3-step, 5-step, whatever your process is. You might have a name for it, even better. But if we're dealing with empty nesters, we could say, well, we discuss their vision. Do they want to travel more? Do they need space for hobbies or the grandchildren? So this personal touch helps me understand what will truly make them happy long term. And it sets me apart because I listen first. It's a roadmap based on their unique life. My step 2 is, well, I match the market to their vision. Once I've got a deep understanding of their needs, I turn that into action by not only looking for homes that meet their future lifestyle and what they want, because it's not about what's on the market today. It's about what works for their next chapter in life. And my clients aren't overwhelmed with the choices that don't suit them because I've already filtered out properties that don't match their vision. For example, instead of overwhelming them with 10 different homes, I'll narrow it down to a few that meet their exact future criteria: location, size, amenities. So this strategic focus cuts out the noise, reduces their stress, and speeds up the whole process. So they're not just getting a house, they're securing the next step in life. Third step, I offer a full service, start to finish. I offer comprehensive support through the entire moving process. I'm not just dropping them at the closing table and walking away. I help with organizing, decluttering, hiring movers, and connecting with trusted professionals in my network to handle any needs in their home. For instance, I've had clients overwhelmed by the thought of downsizing. I help them declutter, stage their home, and even found them a moving company. Then on the other side, I help them connect utilities and unpack, because my goal is to make the entire process seamless and stress-free. People leave not just with a new home, but with peace of mind that everything's taken care of. Can you see, by me articulating a particular process of how I'd help empty nesters downsize stress-free, that is what would put you apart from other realtors in your space, because the listener will feel heard. They will hear that, oh, this person is going above and beyond, and it's not transactional. It's about providing a full service. So whatever it is you do with your clients, whatever it is, and again, this process can change depending on what podcast you appear on, because focus on one particular target audience and one result that you can offer them. So can you see that these things can be changed, and every guest appearance could appear slightly different? But by you articulating how your process is focused on the client rather than you, that if the listener is getting ready to downsize, they're more likely to come to you. I hope this is making sense. How are you guys doing? Thumbs up. You're getting here. So the fourth step is about the paradigm shift. Now, the listeners don't know you yet, so maybe they don't quite trust you. They've heard what it is you do, who you help, your story, your process, but they still might have some objections. There might be some objections that come up. So if you can get ahead of the internal limiting beliefs that they need to get over and the external. Now, internal limiting beliefs could be, you know what, I can do this myself. I don't need help downsizing. So for those who think they can handle it alone, you could share stories that make them think twice. Like maybe if you've had a client who tried to sell the home without a realtor to save on commissions, maybe they ended up underselling, or maybe they dealt with months of stress and finally called you to fix it. And in the end, they netted more after the commission than they would have alone. And that's the story you want to share. Because, you know, you guys know real estate is complex. So when you share, rather than you telling the listener, when you share a story, a real life example, you know, you can help people realize the value of professional guidance without telling them directly that you're wrong, you need a realtor. Nobody likes to be told. So the second one would be, so we're still talking about the paradigm shift. There's still a fourth step. There will always be external limiting beliefs, which are normally time or money, right? So maybe people think that they're saving money by skipping professional help. But when they try to do it themselves, they don't anticipate all the hours involved, all the hidden costs, and potential mishaps, if you like, that'll all add up, you can explain how hiring you will save them time, money, stress in the long run. So you could say, again, share a client story. I had a client who thought they didn't need help with downsizing. They soon became overwhelmed and they called me. I took over the process and they not only got more for their home, but the process was smooth. So by sharing, that'll make people realize that investing in a professional isn't an expense, but it's a way to maximize their result. So what you're doing is you're getting ahead of the game. So external beliefs are always either time, money. Yes, there are some other external objections, but when you overcome the objection of time in a way that inspires the listener to take action now. So the 5th P stands for proceed. This is where, the host is going to say something along the lines of, how do the listeners reach out? What should the listeners do next? Something like that at the close of the podcast. Now, this is where you want to talk about moving forwards. What's the next logical step for the listener to come and work with me? Don't leave this vague. So this is such a common thing. They want to say, you can find me on LinkedIn or check out my website. Give them something they want. So for example, if we're keeping with the empty nester theme, offer a free guide. 5 steps to downsizing without the overwhelm. That guide can provide immediate value and shows them that you're the expert in solving that specific problem. Then it's a no-brainer for them to actually download that and take the first step with you. Then you've got their email, or if they were to text you, you've got their details. They're on your list. They're in your world. You've got a lead from appearing on the podcast. Or maybe it's for those ready to dive deeper, I offer a 50-minute consultation call. We can discuss your unique situation and get clear on the best next steps. It's tailored, it's personal, and designed to help them take action right now. Getting people to book a call, I've got to say, from experience, is a little bit harder, because if they're not your listeners and you're on somebody else's podcast, it might be a bigger step. Whereas having some kind of, if it was just a download or maybe a video, you're already podcasting, some kind of immersive experience where the listener gets to experience a little bit more about how it would look like working with you. It's all about building the know, like, and trust. So your goal is to make it easy for people to engage. You will not know if they've come and checked you out on Insta. It's not measurable. So if you know that you've appeared on a podcast and the following day you've got a load of leads in your back office because you've allowed them to download this guide that solves a specific problem, then it's a win for you. So, it's all about them stepping into a clear, structured process that will help the listener move forward with confidence. And when you share your process, you're able to connect a little bit more with your clients. And it's more of a strategic way to guide them through the market and offer a sort of hands-on support from start to finish. So by overcoming the objections with real life stories of maybe previous clients, and then finally offering a clear path forward, you show that working with you isn't just an option, it's the smart, stress-free choice, and that your process is clear, it's valuable, and most importantly, it gets results. So to recap the 5 Ps, the first is the pre-frame. This is how you're introduced focusing on the transformation that you offer. The second P is the promise. That promise that has just been promised by the host is your chance to share your story in a way that shows your journey and why you're passionate about what you do now. The third P is your process. Share the unique method that you use to get these people that specific result. The fourth P stands for the paradigm shift, which means you get ahead. You get ahead of the objections before they arise. And you use stories that shift the belief in the listener. And then the final P is proceed. Tell them exactly, with a clear call to action, what the next step is to work with you. So when you follow those 5 Ps, you're not only you're going to connect with the podcast audience in a far deeper way, but you're also going to position yourself as the go-to expert in your field. So hopefully you can see how using this strategy can make your guest appearances more impactful, right? So you might be thinking, yeah, but you've got to give the host questions that are going to trigger his responses, right? That's easy. You guys have been a guest on ours. Initially, we've said, do you not have any questions that you want us to ask you? Some don't. Well, you can give them the questions, because the whole idea of doing it in this way is that you get the chance to sell without selling. And it's about the listener. It's not about you. So the questions that you can give them is going to be whatever your bio that you've given. So I help empty nesters downsize without, stress-free. So the question you're going to send into them is, what inspired you to start helping empty nesters downsize stress-free? Because that is going to trigger you sharing your origin story. The second question, and this is going to, when you share your story, it's important that they feel it. It's not just you giving information. Like I said at the beginning, info tells, but stories sell. So really help the audience feel that moment when you had the aha. Then, how do you help empty nesters downsize stress-free? Do you have a process? And this is where you tell them your unique process that you use to get that result, that makes the listener feel like it's manageable and easy for them to get involved. The host could say, what stops, but why it could be, if it's empty nesters, why does downsizing cause so much stress? What's holding people back basically from that? And that is where you can speak and tell stories that help people feel that internal objection they have for not getting that why result, right? Then it could be again. So it doesn't have to be these specific questions. It could be, what holds people back? What stops people? What prevents people? Or why are they getting the negative experience? So that gives you the opportunity to talk about any of the external limiting beliefs, which are normally time or money. And so in this way, you want to overcome this and inspire them to take action now. Why should the listener come into your world today? Why should they download that free guide? And then finally, what should the listeners do next? Give them a clear call to action that they can take to get involved right now. So that way, you will be clear how you got a specific result from being a guest on that particular podcast. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions? Feel free to open up your mic. Feel free to ask any questions or put them in the chat. Can you see how using that formula thank you, Kat, is going to help you actually get a return on the investment of time, because obviously guest appearances are free, but you still want to get a result at the end of appearing on somebody's podcast. Anybody have any question? What type of lead magnet did you use? Well, like for me personally, I will encourage people to do, when I do this with my coaches, I offer them a consultation to actually draw out that particular origin story. Because from my experience, it is that one moment in time. So people can share with me their background story and I'll go, no, you start there. That's when you draw people into the story, and then you can weave in part of your backstory as you go. For you guys, create a single page website and opt in for that particular thing. Don't send them to your website. Your website may be full of so much information that they get lost. So when you have a lead magnet that's specific for empty nesters or specific for first-time buyers, you're going to get a much better response. Because like I say, how do you know? They come and visit your website, you have no clue what result you got from appearing on that podcast. Very helpful in getting a process. Thank you. Do you guys have a something that you can give people depending on what you're focused on? Do you have some kind of resource? Or if you guys are doing podcasts, this could be the perfect time to send an episode. Maybe you've done an episode dealing with that or interviewed somebody dealing with that. It's a perfect time to then share. You get their email to share that particular episode. There you go. You've got another listener. You've got another you've got another subscriber. So you could do it in that way. Otherwise, yes, create a specific lead magnet for a specific problem that you solve. So guys, most of you are already clients. So, feel free to reach out to the account manager if you need help with this. And if there isn't anybody, if some of you have not actually joined yet, then feel free to, I'll put my link in the chat to come and book a call with me, because obviously hosting your own podcast, you can still use those questions. You want your guests to shine on your podcast, maybe help prep them how to show up and shine because they want a result from being on your podcast. So yeah, any final questions? I know you guys are busy and I really thank you for your time today. How much did you talk during the recording as a host? Well, when you're being a host, you're quiet the majority of the time. You're the one asking the questions. When you're hosting the podcast, it's about the guest. But obviously, every episode that you record, the final part is your opportunity to promote you. Yeah, there's got to be a win. But when you're going through, yes, you're asking the question. Allow the guest to share their story. You only ask the next question once they finish. Awesome. Yeah, no problem, Kendra. I hope you got a lot out of this training today. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Karen. Awesome, guys. And yeah, don't worry about Sharon there. She didn't fall to the ground. She just sent me a private message saying she's dealing with some other issues. So don't worry, she's fine. Worries. I've canceled the 911 call. But yeah, thank you guys for coming on watching Karen pull on some show here, more specific to podcast guest appearances, which is something that we always make an effort on doing. We'll also be in touch with you when regarding to that. All right. So not just hosting your own podcast, but actually helping you feature some of the other podcasts. Because as our network is growing and growing, we can even kind of feed off each other, right? Even Lisa, for example, there, she's muted, maybe she's listening or not. But Lisa already featured the Daniel Berger podcast, which is a realtor from New York. And Daniel Berger already featured Lisa's podcast, which is a realtor from Cape Cod. And they did a switch, right? So we can propel the switch and always kind of increase the reach that we can have together. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming on, and see you on the next mastermind.